Ladies and gentlemen, we will now move on to the more
אנשים שתומכים ואפילו מסייעים למבקשי
to those who are actively seeking to expel them. And I would like to thank once again the Vice President Emeritus of the Supreme Court of Israel, Eliyahu Rubinstein, for his wise words. I think that he has presented a fascinating, complex, and important picture of Israeli society and its the way it grapples with the refugees or asylum seekers, as you might call them. I am now honored to invite the panel participants. The first to be Mr. Joey Lowe, founder of Israel at Heart. As you will hear, Joey is one of those people who in recent years has helped the asylum seekers. Mr. Yarom Ariav, formerly the Director General of the Ministry of Finance and currently the Executive Chairman of Lavi Capital. Former Minister Yishai, who was formerly the Chairman of Shas and the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of the Interior, of course, and engaged in this topic. And you were one of the first people who engaged in this issue, is that correct? And last but not least, Advocate Anat Ben-Dor of Tel Aviv University, and I'm honored to invite her as well, and myself, so we can begin the panel.
גברתי,
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. You each come from a different place in this discussion, so I hope that we can give a few answers and maybe some solutions for this very complex question of refugee seekers. So with your permission, I would like to start with you, Anat Ben-Dor, just to get a picture of the legislative situation today. What is the status of the refugee seekers today? Thank you, of course, for inviting me. I will talk about them, and I will refer to them as refugee seekers. I am proud to say that I'm one of the people that assist them. I've been assisting them since 2005, when the first waves began. There is no doubt, no question today, following the fiasco of the attempt to send them to a third world country. Of course, we cannot send them back to their original country, and I must say in favor of Israel that Israel does not understand that it cannot endanger them by returning them to their countries of origin. And the idea of sending them to a third country collapsed. So we're facing a fact. They are here. They live amongst us. I'm familiar with them. I know them very well. Many of them speak Hebrew fluently. Some of them have children. A lot of them are workers, and all they want is protection, the ability to live with dignity, and many of them dream about going home. Their legal status, unfortunately, in my opinion, tries to wither them by calling them penetrators, infiltrators. It's very difficult for them to find work without visas. There's the deposit law since May 2017, meaning that 70% of their monthly salary is taken from them and deposited until the day that they leave Israel, even though it's clear that it is difficult, if not impossible, for them to leave. So they are kind of in limbo, you're saying, regarding their existence in Israel. They don't know what will happen the next day. It's not only that they don't know. My feeling is that they can't plan for any longer than 2 months. That's what they're given. They only get a visa. If they want to study or develop or advance, it's almost impossible. The jobs that they get are the most difficult, most dangerous, dirtiest jobs, not lucrative, and then then a high percentage is taken from them. They don't have medical insurance. My feeling was that the question was intentionally or unintentionally. I think that it is very intentional to force them to leave on their own accord. But the result was that everyone who lives around them is negatively influenced. Let's add former Minister Yishai to the conversation. The topic of this subject is loving the refuge or illegal migrants. And this issue, I guess, blew up on your. Would you say that this blew up in your face? No, not necessarily. I would say that it began before my time. Can you define the point when you said to yourself that this is a danger to the existence of Israel? I want to start off with a few words. I just want to correct what you said, what the honorable lawyer said. We are talking about infiltrators, refuge seekers. There was not a single refuge seeker that did not receive status in Israel. We're not talking about refugees, we're talking about infiltrators, and that's a significant difference in public discourse. I'm not talking about love or hate or evil and kind. I don't think that I'm cruel, and I don't think that I have less compassion than anyone else on this distinguished panel. But this is a Jewish state, and with the difficulties that we face in our state and throughout history, which is unique to all countries around of any nation in history, with all of the challenges that we face in this region, if we let hundreds of thousands of people come in, but they're here, just a moment. This is an existential threat to the Zionism. When I said to Netanyahu, when I was not Ministry of Interior, I was Minister of Labor, I said it. I identified the problem. I said that we will kill Zionism if there is no fence, if there's no clear policy. We'll end up with 1 million people here. At the time, there wasn't a fence. I went to Mubarak as Minister of Labor and Industry, and I visited him. And Ehud Olmert, who was Prime Minister at the time, told me to talk to him about the hot chase. And we did, and he said, "You're not serious." He said that in Arabic they would say you're crazy, because a country that doesn't want infiltrators, why are you giving them jobs? So then I became the Minister of Economy, and I said that if there's no fence, then we are going to destroy Zionism, the Zionist enterprise. There'll be millions of people, and it was difficult to convince him, because we're talking about billions of shekels. Fence is crucial, because if there was no fence, then there would be 1 million people here. But the fence was built. We're talking about a situation. I don't want to review the entire history, but we're facing a situation in which there are about 40,000 people, give or take. Do they risk the Zionist enterprise, in your opinion? I want to say another few words, and then before I answer your question, the idea of the fence, the idea of encouraging them to leave at their own will. I met with ambassadors from Eritrea and from other places, and they understood very well that in 1 month here, they make as much money as they would in 2 years in their home countries. And I met infiltrators while here, with their first weeks in Israel, and before anyone told them what to say, I spoke to them, and they said clearly that we came here to work. Why did you take the risk they asked the women, I asked women, why did you take the risk of coming? She said, because I was told that if I have a child or two, then I'll get a legal status here. So in order during my time, over 10,000 people left at their own will. How did you do that? First of all, there was a very clear policy. I was very persistent. It was painful. It was difficult. And people told me that you sound extreme, that you'll lose your popularity. Chefetz told me that you're going to lose so much. And I said that if I have to choose between my commitment to Israel and my population, then that's my decision. But to those people that live here now, 40,000 people, in your eyes, are these people a danger to the Zionist enterprise? The people who are here now, we have to do everything possible to return them to their homes, and no matter what they say and everything that we hear and that we've heard and will hear in the future, there was compared, people have made comparisons with Jews who suffered terribly during the Holocaust. At the time, they had nowhere to go. I wish they would have been able to send to their homelands instead of to the crematoriums. Along with the state of Israel and the UN has to promote employment and jobs in Africa and all parts of Africa, and to help these people return home and help them exist to make a living there. It is not the responsibility of Israel, with all of the problems that it has, to address these problems. Canceling the UN plan, was that a mistake? It's not a mistake. I think that the decision was initially wrong. I think we have to work properly, sensitively, send them either to a third country or to their a country of origin. We'll continue this discussion in a moment, but I want to ask you about the financial perspective. I think you've analyzed this in depth, because often when we talk about refugees or refuge seekers or infiltrators, this problem exists throughout the Western world. This is a problem everywhere, and I think migration of nations is only increasing as the years go by, and will continue to increase. The financial harm, considering the fact that they're here, do they place a burden on the Israeli economy? Can they be used to develop the Israeli economy? Where do we stand? First of all, I first encountered this story when I was the Director General of the Ministry of Economy, and then the border was open. And when Yossi Vardi invited me to speak at the Bialik School in southern Tel Aviv, and it was heartbreaking to see the children of these refugees who speak fluent Hebrew, but also tell the terrible stories of their terrible stories. That was the first time that I actually encountered the problem. And today, when I look at it now, first, it's first and foremost an ethical question, a moral Jewish question, but there's also a financial issue. And from a financial aspect, this is a severe problem. The problem is that deportation, and Yishai was the Minister of Economy. I think he can understand this very well. We're talking about a very specific population. We're not going to fight the previous war when the borders were open. Right now, there's no risk of hundreds of thousands of people coming in. Right now, it's a limited, restricted population. On the one hand, we allow foreign workers to come into Israel, and there's a shortage of tens of thousands of jobs where Israelis are not interested in. There's so much pressure from contractors, from HR contractors that want to bring foreign workers into Israel. So on the one hand, the organizations want to bring foreign workers into Israel, but on the other hand, we want to deport the refuge seekers. So if we can think of this from the financial perspective, it costs over 1 billion shekels to deport them. It's foolishness. We can go, there's the 10-point plan that can solve the problem, that in a way that is good for the economy, humane, and in order to do so, the government has to make brave decisions. So you're saying that deporting will cost a lot more money and certainly will not be helpful. The right thing to do from a financial perspective is to keep them here, to prepare them, to incorporate them into the economy as a beneficial, productive part of the workforce. We have to scatter them around Israel. They cannot all live in Tel Aviv. They have to be there has to be an organized plan to settle them throughout Israel. I can go into detail if you like. Joey Lau, I must say that we've known each other for 15 years. This is full disclosure, just because so people won't roll their eyes while we talk. We've been good friends for 15 years. I joined one of your publicity programs, Israel at the Heart. Thank you for sending me when it was freezing cold outside. It was so much fun. And now that I've said that, let's talk about your work. How many years have you been involved in the refugee issue? Since 2010. Why? כאשר אני פגשתי את הסטודנטים ב-2010 ושמעתי את הסיפור על 6 הסטודנטים שרצו ללמוד פה, חשבתי על ההורים שלי, אבא שלי הגיע מאוסטריה ואימא שלי מברלין. אימא שלי הייתה פליטה במשך 6 שנים בצרפת ובקובה עד שהגיעה לארצות הברית, ואני שמעתי את הסיפורים שלהם ובכיתי והרגשתי צורך לעזור להם בגלל הערכים היהודיים שעליהם גדלתי. אני למדתי בישיבה במשך 12 שנה, למדתי חומש, למדתי תלמוד, וברור לי שכיהודי אנחנו מחויבים לסייע למישהו שנרדף במקרה של רצח עם. אני הייתי מסייע לכל אדם, גם בלי התנאים האלה. אני עוזר לאנשים כי אני חושב שכך יהודי צריך להתנהג. המשימה שלנו בעולם היא להיות אור לגויים, וזה מדהים בעיניי כאשר אני רואה מישהו חובש כיפה שצריך להכיר את התנ"ך הרבה יותר טוב ממני. איך אתה יכול להצדיק את היחס הזה לאנשים, להתייחס לאנשים בלי חמלה בכלל? אתה היית גאה כשאמרת שאתה היית הראשון. אני הייתי מתבייש להגיד שאני הייתי הראשון לגרש אנשים שאני לא רוצה אותם פה. ישראל הייתה מקום הרבה יותר טוב אם היא הייתה מכילה את האפריקאים שאני מכיר. המרכז הבינתחומי הוא גן עדן לסטודנטים ממקומות שונים. אני מניח שלא בילית הזמן בכלל עם אנשים כאלה. אתה תקפת, לכן אני חייב לתת לו הזדמנות להגיב. The attempt to quote the Bible in a distorted way of loving the foreigner, etc. It's wrong. This is not when it comes to the foreigners that the Bible is talking about, it is completely different. And converts, you're saying that the Jewish people have gone through so much. This is exactly what I want to address. Because of everything that the Jewish nation has been through, it cannot afford to go through all of that again. I don't have time to get to all of the complexity and all of the dangers. I'm sure that everyone will agree that if we hadn't built the fence and there would be 1 million people here now, then we would have lost the Zionist enterprise. So if we want to say now that on behalf of Jewish morals, we have to be empathetic and compassionate, and we'll destroy the state of Israel on the way, I disagree. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Lau. This isn't a matter of hatred. This is a matter of the interests of the state of Israel, the existence of the Jewish people, and Zionism. If we really want to help, I'm willing to lead the process of going to Eritrea and Sudan and to visit all of the industrial areas and the social services. It's the UN's job to do that, and we will contribute whatever we can. So you're saying that what Joey is saying does not apply. אני יהודי אמריקאי, אני לא חי בישראל כמוך, ואני יכול לומר לך שיהודים אמריקאים, לא כולם, אבל אצל רובם, הנושא של הגזענות הוא נושא מאוד רגיש. אתם ישראלים, אתם הרוב, אתם יכולים להתנהג איך שאתם רוצים. אני גדלתי בארצות הברית, בתור מיעוט, ידעתי שאסור להתבלט יותר מדי. כאשר אני חושב על זה שישראל תגרש את האפריקנים, זה יגרום כל כך הרבה כאב לב ליהדות ארצות הברית, כי הם חושבים על האוכלוסייה השחורה בארצות הברית, חושבים על הגזענות. People love you very much, people respect you very much, but you don't live here. Many Israelis ask themselves, what do you and other contributors have to do with what is your... Everyone is responsible for one another. אנחנו אחראים עליכם ואתם אחראים עלינו, ערבים זה לזה. כאשר אתם מבקשים סיוע מישראל, אנחנו גאים לעזור לישראל, אבל אם ישראל הופכת להיות, אומרת שלא אכפת לה יותר מיהדות ארצות הברית, בין אם מדובר בנושא הכותל או השאלה מי הוא יהודי, ישראל תהיה במצב מאוד רגיש. אנחנו נדבר אחר כך על הנושא של יהדות ארצות הברית וישראל. The issue of mutual responsibility between Jews is we are losing a lot of those values, and I think that if the contributions, if the donations were invested in returning them to their country, their African countries, and developing those countries, recruiting, raising funds and contributions from all over the world, making these countries much more developed countries, not third world countries, developing them. Yes, but it's a very long process. It's not something that can be resolved overnight. But Israel is a haven from Africa. They went through a lot of countries, but they chose to come to Israel. Israel, with all of the problems that it has from the moment that it became a nation until today, the Jewish nation, if we had been much clearer than we used to be, then we wouldn't have this problem. And all of the human rights organizations, instead of attacking those that lead this struggle, and attacking me in this case, instead, if they would help us return them to their countries and help them there, then it would be everything would seem a lot better. Now I'll let you respond, Anat. I'm sure you have a lot to say. I don't want to repeat what Minister Yishai said and the way he spoke about this population. I think it was very racist. I think that short visit to Saharonim and Eritrea, I'm going to tell you a short visit. I've been involved in this field for years. It's not just a short visit. Saying that these people are not refugees, I'm the professional. I was the minister, not you. I approved or rejected. I've been representing refugees for 20 years. There is no Western country with recognition rates of 0.09%. Israel is cheating. It developed a system that does not recognize refugees. Mr. Yishai, please do not interrupt. If Israel does its job professionally with UN observers, I think that is not fair. So the state controller said that only 0.09% are recognized as refugees. Other countries like Greece, for example, that had a very low percentage, 1%, it said that a refuge shelter that recognizes less than 1% is an unfair country. You cannot. Do we have the right to say that our policy is Jews first? Jews can come in and no one else can. Israel has signed the refugee covenant that was signed after the agreement, after the Jewish issue. The commitment is to provide shelter, to provide protection for people who are being persecuted. I have to say two things. It's either these 40,000 or South Tel Aviv. I think that's demagogy. Why? It doesn't matter if it's 40,000 or a million. There's a question that no one ever answers. How is it possible that people who crossed the border were put on buses and, excuse me for the expression, they were dumped in Tel Aviv and in the thousands? That's your responsibility. You created this situation. When I was the Minister of Interior, they were already in Tel Aviv, and my project was to take them out of Tel Aviv to Saharonim and then back to their own countries. What they do is they come to the weaker neighborhoods. It's easiest in Tel Aviv. That's where they can find jobs. Let's be honest. It was easy for Israel to dump them there. No, they knew where to go. They chose where to go. Some went to Eilat, but everyone wanted to end up in South Tel Aviv because there they had their state within a state. It was easiest for them there.
I think that the government, including Minister Yishai, should be getting a lot of credit for building the fence and budgeting it, but I think they should be criticized harshly for their ineffectivity in dealing with South Tel Aviv and dealing with the asylum seekers. And I want to say just one word about why the most reasonable thing is to go back to the UN outline. And it's actually surprising that we withdrew from it. The Prime Minister, with all his rhetoric, could have easily convinced them if he had only said the following thing. The UN outline assumes that about 16 or 17,000 will remain here and about 16,000 will go, and not to African countries. You keep saying we'll go with them to Africa. Why? Because they're black? No, it doesn't matter which country. They can go to Monaco if they want to. Yes, but that's the view. They can go back to other countries, not their own countries. You're insinuating racism. Yes, I am saying it's racism, bluntly. Because why? Because the Romanians who were here in the 1990s didn't go out, the Bulgarians who were working here, the Chinese, didn't they all go out? I mean, I can agree about this. It doesn't matter what country they go to. They can go anywhere in the world, to Europe. It doesn't matter. They don't have the problems that Israel is dealing with. And I think it would have been very appropriate. Yishai, let's just go back to the UN outline. What are we saying? In any scenario, even those who support the deportation, we're not talking about deporting all of them. And the UN outline says those who would have remained here anyway, you accept or you get a sort of reward for, because some of them you find places for in those countries that absorb them. And I don't understand why we shouldn't go back to that outline when it comes to the 16,000 to 17,000 who will remain here, which again is a defined, limited number that is not expected to rise. There is an organized plan, and a good one. How do you scatter them across the country to ensure that they contribute to the economy? So give us some highlights of this plan. Well, it's a 10-step plan, and we're saying, first of all, placing thousands of asylum seekers in industries where they are required, including providing them with training, giving work visas to those people. We're talking about 16,000, 17,000 if we take the UN outline, providing incentives for employers who employ asylum seekers. We're talking about decentralizing. Right now it's 9,200 people in South Tel Aviv who should be decentralized and dispersed so that neither town will have more than 1% of asylum seekers. We're talking about just several hundreds. Yes, just several hundreds. We're talking about a fair mediation system so that they can find an apartment through fair brokerage, and also looking into socially and physically rehabilitating South Tel Aviv so that they are at least compensated for those years of suffering. Okay, we'll go back to the economics of things in a moment, but Joey, I'd like to help you from the international aspect, because we keep looking inwards. Naturally, you look at your own problems and the inhabitants of South Tel Aviv and so on, and not once or twice have you told me you Israelis don't understand what it does to American Jewry. Now, we do understand a little bit because we saw some of the American Jewish leaders protesting against plans of this sort or another, but does that make the link between American Jews and Israeli Jews less good because Israel has some problems with a few thousand infiltrators? אני אוהבת ישראל, חייתי פה, למדתי פה באוניברסיטה העברית, הבת שלי גרה פה, והייתי פה כמתנדב בשנות ה-70, אי אפשר לומר שלא אכפת לי מישראל. אבל אתם מסתכלים על זה מבפנים. אם הייתם מסתכלים על זה מבחוץ, לישראל יש הרבה מאוד אויבים ברחבי העולם, ועלינו להיות חזקים. ואחת הדרכים להיות חזקים היא שאנשים יתמכו בכם. ובסיס התמיכה צריכה להיות יהודים ברחבי העולם. ואם אתם מרחיקים את אותם יהודים, בין אם מדובר בקמפוסים בארצות הברית, ששם תנועת BDS מאוד חזקה, קשה מאוד לאנשים כמוני להגן על ישראל, כאשר סטודנטים שחורים אומרים ישראל היא מדינה גזענית, ויש בהחלט אלמנט של גזענות פה. כי ענת, את בטח יודעת יותר, אבל למעלה מ-150,000 עובדים זרים היו פה, אבל המס הזה של מס
fixation on the part of the government, and I don't know where
פיקדון, מס הפיקדון הוא רק חל על אפריקנים, על שחורים, זה נגדם. ואם אתה שוב, איש העולם הגדול, אם אתה חי בארץ, אתה יכול להיות חזק כמה שאתה רוצה מבחינה צבאית, אבל יש פה גם שאלה של ערכים, יש כאן שאלה של מה אנו מייצגים כעם, ובין אם מדובר באמריקנים יהודים או ישראלים יהודים, יש הרבה מחנה משותף בינינו, ולא צריך להיפטר ממנו רק בגלל שרוצים לגרש אותם. אתם יודעים מה? במקום לגרש אותם, חבקו אותם, ותגידו להם תודה לאל שאתם מלמדים אותנו מהי אנושיות, כי אני חושש שהרבה מאוד מהיהדות היא טקסים ולא ערכים. מה זה משנה אם אתה אומר סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו כל בוקר, אם בסופו של יום אתם מתייחסים לאנשים כאילו הם שקרנים, רמאים ומושחתים. זה הרבה יותר גרוע. But Joey, listen, I'm wondering whether you're maybe looking at this out of proportion, blowing it out of proportion. I don't want to ask you how much money you've put into fighting BDS and the delegitimization of Israel, but you're here and you're saying, I'm not giving it money anymore, I'm not going to fight BDS against Israel because of this issue. Are there more people like you? יש בהחלט צ'ארלס ברופמן, שהיה אחד האנשים שתמך בתגלית לפני שבוע, העלה את הנושא שישראל בהחלט מרתיעה הרבה מאוד צעירים, והסטטיסטיקה מציינת זאת. זו עובדה, אפשר לומר בישראל זה הימין בישראל, אבל זה לא מספיק שישראל תתמך רק על ידי הימין. אם רוצים דור חדש, דור צעיר של אנשים שאוהבים את ישראל, אז צריך להסתכל על ישראל. And is that disappearing? כן, זה נעלם. וזה לא רק הנושא הזה, זה הרבה נושאים, זה נושא הכותל, יש הרבה מאוד נושאים. Okay, now you're touching upon an issue where you can also represent the Orthodox and your party. Okay, there's a distortion here, and I understand the difficulty in terms of the number of refugees. It's not numbers. Whoever is a refugee, and whoever is not, is not. You can't talk about percentages. Yes, but the state hasn't addressed this. I think we addressed this very well, but if you're not a refugee, you're not a refugee. Now look, what he's saying, the bottom line is we're the Jewish people, we are merciful, and we should say to God that we have sinned. Okay, so we shouldn't have built the fence. We should have allowed millions, 3 millions come in. That's what he's saying. This isn't fake news. He didn't say that. He said there are people here, let's take care of them. I just want to explain the battle between the two sides. If we hadn't done what we did, and if we hadn't continued along this course, and now the government is not doing that, and he's blaming the state of Israel of a crime. Yes, but he's saying American Jews are losing the intimate and special warmth towards Israel, towards the Jewish people in Israel, because what they see as Americans as racism. Because they're living there. They're not living in South Tel Aviv. Whoever lives in South Tel Aviv won't be saying those things. I would like to suggest to all those who are saying what they're saying is to come here to South Tel Aviv. אני מבלה זמן רב בדרום תל אביב. יש לי חברים. I didn't interrupt you, but it's very easy to say to those donors from outside that there's so much money here going to PR, even to incitement. And what the government did or is not doing now, because I was also represented as someone who is cruel and who has horns, and they all even had a movie with me that won an Oscar. You have to show me that. All my sin was, one bad thing I did was that I built the fence, I built these facilities, and I protected South Tel Aviv, and I took action in order to either send them back home or to another home, wherever they should choose. Well, there's a wide consensus with that you've done well in that respect. But we're trying to look at the current situation, the numbers that are already here. Those who are already here, Mr. Ariav is saying, look, I have a plan. They will be beneficial, and they will be dispersed throughout the country. And then South Tel Aviv will be rehabilitated. We can do that, but what's happening now? They're all here, all of them, 40,000 are here in South Tel Aviv. Nothing is moving, and they're just being delayed 1 month after the next. Well, the fact that there is stagnation, that the government is not doing what it should be doing, the fact that it's not moving, I'm no longer in the government, I haven't been for 3 years, it's not the Ministry of Interior, I haven't been there in 6 years. I have a lot of criticism as to what's not happening there, but I can certainly empathize, I can certainly worry and have concern over the real refugees, and they should get status and they should get help. That really is the proof in the pudding as the Jewish people, and they will get love from me as well. But if you're not a refugee and you're an infiltrator, they should very delicately be returned to their home and family, or to another country with much respect and with giving them money upon their leaving. And I don't want it to sound cruel, but I am looking after the interests of our people, the Jewish people, and I was in the government for many years, and the problems that the Jewish people have, I mean, we don't need more than that. Madam, I'd like to ask you a question. There's been an argument or a disagreement here about who's a refugee, who is defined as a refugee, and the government seems to be refusing to do so or is delaying it. I don't want to go into that. Can you define, of those 40,000, how many are actual refugees per se? Well, I must say that this binary presentation that we heard, well, you can't say both law and not binary. Because I'm saying it's a show, but although someone else would be saying the truth. By international law, I can tell you who is a refugee. But yes, Israel calls them infiltrators and abuses them, but it doesn't send them back. Because under international law, you cannot return a person to a place where their life is at risk. And Danny Ayalon, who was Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, said we can't send them back to Eritrea because they will be under the ground and they will be tortured, and training and everything else that Minister Yishai is talking about, that's in a parallel universe. So Israel knows that it can't take them back to where they were. Did I interrupt you? No. But you're saying something that's not true. You're saying wrong things. The state of Israel is meeting international standards by the fact that it's not sending them back home. But now we have to decide who's a refugee. And recently, in a case of mine about a man from Herzliya, the government of Israel said that there is no, if you flee, it's not as if you're a refugee. And thousands of asylum seekers are simply rejected without any discussion. And when we come to court and when we place all the arguments according to international law and other laws, then suddenly the court says this person is a refugee. Okay, I again would like you to focus on this cold question. How many? Give me numbers. The government hasn't looked into it. You looked into it. Well, I didn't check all 40,000, but I can say, what's your assessment? What's your estimate? It's hard for me to talk about numbers, but there are 3,000 asylum seekers from Darfur. We know what things are like in Darfur. I think that even the Minister Derry talked about that. At the time of Olmert, there were 500, and we said, okay, we'll give status of 500. And recently, Minister Derry gave status to 500 more. But that's not the way it works with asylum seekers. Yes, but somebody has to know how many of these people are here legally and how many are here illegally. They are all here legally. They are all here legally because the government of Israel is giving them protection. Sudanese and Eritreans who cannot be returned because their lives would then be at risk are here legally. The state of Israel is not deporting them. Yes, but it's offering them all sorts of solutions. Yes, we'll pressure them, and then maybe something will come out of it. Well, the only solution that was on the table recently and proposed by the UN, we saw what happened with it. The state of Israel would rather have this entire population here and continue to exert pressure on it, knowing that they can't deport it so long as no one will be able to stay here for long. And I think in that respect, if we're talking about Jewish values and international values, we can't be a Western country, a normal democracy these days, without having refugees stay here. Okay, we have 3.5 minutes, so each and every one of you can have 1 minute. Yarom Ariav, I'm starting with you. And I'm going back to the sentence, is the economy stupid? How can you explain it that businessmen, high-tech people, millionaires, those who have done their thing in life, are the ones who are supporting the asylum seekers? Is it all business? I'm aware of this, and I think that we'll be seeing more of it. I think that it is emanating from the fact that these are value-based people. It starts from value, it starts with morals, with being Jewish, and it's also about people who understand economics. They understand that deportation costs a lot, and it just is not, doesn't make sense. Otherwise, instead, use them as a resource inside Israel. And right now, on the practical level, Attila, we need to go back to the UN outline in some form or another. Because everyone, including Mr. Yishai, will agree that it provides a solution. An excellent solution to this issue. The only argument we hear from people who won't say it out loud is, wait, we also have to be cruel to these people in order for others not to come. And I am not willing to accept this argument because it is pure cruelty. I think that today we have a fence, the problem is limited, and we have to go back to the UN outline
לפזר אותם בארץ.
to provide workplaces for these people who do remain and move on. הדבר הבא שצריך לעשות הוא שתהיה מערכת שתעבור ותבדוק את כל ה-40,000. מי שמקבל מעמד פליט יקבל מעמד פליט, מי שהגיע לכאן בתור מחפשי העבודה ייכנס ל3-4 שנים ויחזור. יש פועלים זרים מהפיליפינים, מסין, מתאילנד, הם גם ככה כאן. אז אני לא רוצה להיכנס לעניין חברות כוח האדם, זה חלק מהבעיה, אבל אוקיי, שלא ייכנסו נוספים, אבל תנו למי שנמצא פה לעבוד באופן חוקי, תנו להם ביטוח בריאות, זה מה שאני חושב שצריך לעשות. Thank you, Joey. Former Minister Yishai. Okay, well, I think there's a distortion. Okay, let's focus about the solution to the problem. How do you release the pressure from South Tel Aviv? How do you help some of the people who can stay here, and how can you deport others? Okay, the whole thing is being distorted. The Jewish people is being blamed for being unmerciful and cruel vis-a-vis these asylum seekers, and that's not true. We are the most sensitive nation, but I would do the following. The hundreds of or millions that have been invested in public diplomacy, if they had taken that money to train these asylum seekers or infiltrators and take them back to their countries and even make them wealthy people who can promote their country's economy in South Sudan or Eritrea and give them good money, give them investments. You know what? If they took 10% of what's been invested here and if it will be invested in them and taking them back to their homes or to other countries, it will all have been well. Thank you very much. And one final word practically from you. The state of Israel can practically deal with 40,000 people. I think the best way is to give them rights that will allow them to live respectfully, to disperse them in positive ways, and think that will actually allow us as Israelis to be proud of our country, and it will also meet the international demand to take the burden or carry some of the burden of the refugees. And I think that those people, when the time comes, will want to go back home. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much, and also thank you to the retired judge, Eliyahu Rubinstein. Thank you all very much.